Hi there, it's Marlene from Jubilee, Germany, and with me is Carola. Carola is a Bolivian economist and climate activist, and she's working as a climate finance analyst at LatinDat, the Latin American Network on Debt and Development. Thank you a lot for being here with me and taking this little recording for our annual meetings and sharing some insights on the Ecuador Galapagos deal. I think it's really interesting for us.
Thank you very much, Melina, for inviting me.
Okay, so let's just start. Could you tell us what is the Ecuador Galapagos deal all about, actually?
Well, the deal is very complex, but in summary, it encompasses the financial close of a 656 million blue bond for Galapagos marine conservation with an unknown framework of issuance. The bond was used to finance a debt buyback of 2.4% of the government's stock of sovereign debt at a near 60% discount rate, taking advantage of the political turmoil and instability of the country at that moment, exchanging 1.6 billion of Ecuador's international bonds for a 656 million impact loan maturing in 2041, lent to Ecuador under partially known conditions. The new bond has a credit guarantee for the Inter-American Development Bank for $85 million, and also a guarantee of $656 million of political risk insurance from the DFC, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. And the total debt savings amounts to $1.1 billion through reduced debt service costs, releasing $450 million for the protection of the Galapagos Islands.
Okay, thank you. Especially the last points may already sound good at the first sight. Could you tell us why this case is relevant for the discussion on debt and climate justice?
Yes, this deal has been advertised as the largest so far, given the apparent level of savings for Ecuador in the debt buyback operation. But when you look into the details, the scheme still raises important concerns. And we have done an analysis, also published a statement signed by more than 260 organizations in Latin America. And the main problems identified are first, the participation of private intermediaries, some of them linked to the financial sector, in addition to the IDB, the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, suggesting that these actors are pushing for the financialization of nature and development, leading to the high transaction costs for the country. Second, the conditions of and transparency of the transactions related to the bond issuance, the buybacks, the guarantees, the insurance are very unclear for us, raising doubts about who will benefit actually from this deal and whether the stated environmental objectives will be achieved. Some allies from Ecuador even had to resort to legal measures to demand that the government share information about the operation. So it was not transparent at all. And we think this information should be public. It is not our responsibility as civil society to demand this kind of information. And finally, the decision-making of the use of the resources will fall to an extraterritorial private entity established in Delaware, which is a tax haven, and which has established a board of members made of 11 people, in which most of them are private sector representatives, which compromises Ecuador's sovereignty over the nature reserve, and also could lead to, the pursuit of profit instead of the well-being of the people. And it also failed to respect free, prior, and informed consent of those people most impacted by the debt swap.
Okay, so at the second sign, it does not look that good anymore. From your analysis, do you think Ecuador is kind of an extraordinary case, or are there other examples like that?
Ecuador is only an example, as this operation follows the trend initiated in 2018 by Seychelles, followed by Belize and Barbados in 2022. Unfortunately, this is the situation for most global south countries, which are facing increasing debt problems, and also, without being highly responsible for the climate crisis, they are being disproportionately affected by climate impacts, being the most vulnerable groups who suffer the most. Using like a metaphor, debt for climate swaps are like putting a band-aid to a patient that is suffering from a disease as severe as cancer, instead of providing a proper treatment on time. Debt for climate swaps have proven to be very limited to create substantial debt reductions and to address underlying causes of the debt crisis. They allow creditors to determine national policies of conservation and climate action and could transfer powers to unaccountable foreign NGOs and companies under these new schemes. Also, they fail to provide additional climate finance, as, for example, bilateral debt swaps could be treated as grants and be accounted as part of the creditors' ODA commitments or climate finance commitments. And they are also a distraction from the fulfillment of climate finance commitments of countries of the global north that hold most of the climate and ecological debt, which in 2009, they have committed to mobilize $100 billion annually for the climate action in global south countries in recognition of this principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. But after 14 years, this didn't happen. And we're very concerned, but because climate finance is being delivered mostly through loans, 72% are loans that are increasing our debts with high interest rates, and that is really, really unfair. So in summary, debt swaps are a result of a failure in the unequal, unfair, and neocolonial international financial system and climate finance architecture. Both of them have proven to be insufficient and ineffective to provide real systemic solutions to the multiple crises the world is facing.
Thanks, Carola. I think this was really a valuable insight for us for our annual meetings. So thanks a lot for taking the time and sharing these insights with us.
No, it's a pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting Latin to be part of this initiative.